Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. For everyone who is new here, my name is Betsley. I am technically now, I guess, rising junior at Barnard College. Usually my videos tend to focus around college or just like lifestyle in general. So for today's video, I decided to do a more in-depth college essay video. I do have a how I got into Barnard video, and I'll link that down below for anyone who is interested in seeing that. And in that video, I didn't share my college essay. I kind of just give you guys the overview of what it was about and yada yada yada, right? And just where I am in my life, I'm much more comfortable sharing my personal essay just because the topic itself is very personal to me, you know. And a lot has been happening in the world right now, and I have been thinking about a lot of things this whole quarantine, but definitely one of the things that have been taking up a lot of space in my head right now is the DACA Supreme Court decision. I have this thing where my college essay is very dear to my heart. Like, no joke, I reread that essay probably 3 to 4 times a year. I don't know what it is about it. It just kind of like motivates me whenever like I'm feeling down. I don't know if it sounds so corny, but like genuinely, like, this is me being honest. It's something that I'm very proud of that I wrote in high school. I'm also going to be giving you guys some tips on writing your college essay, so I'll put timestamps down below just in case you're just interested in my college essay, or if you just want to listen to the tips, then you guys can just skip ahead. I really don't mind. I honestly don't want to make this intro too long, but just a little note. When I began thinking about my YouTube channel and just making a YouTube channel in general, one of my main goals was to talk about immigrant students in higher education, specifically like these prestigious schools, because let me tell you oh my goodness, it's definitely, at least for me, it was and it continues to be a lot and a big culture shock to me. You know, when I was in high school and I was looking up all these college related YouTube videos, a lot of the videos that I saw were of students who gave very helpful information. Don't get me wrong, it just wasn't helpful information for me. And I think that a lot of immigrant students go through the same thing, and I wanted to find a way to begin incorporating my identity as an immigrant student into my videos. And for me reading my essay is how I'm easing into introducing this part of myself to, I guess, you guys. So your personal statement is the essay that will be sent to all the schools that you apply to, right? So this is the essay that got sent to Barnard and all my other private schools, as well as my CUNY and SUNY schools. The prompt that I chose was, some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that is so meaningful they believe their application would be incomplete without it. If this sounds like you, then please share your story. Okay, so we're gonna start reading. I'm gonna cut off certain information just for privacy reasons, so if it kind of sounds weird at certain points, that's why. When I was 3 years old, I was separated from my mom and sister. I hadn't even heard of the United States when I flew from Mexico for 5 hours with unfamiliar faces. As our financial situation worsened, I was to enter the United States by plane, while my 9-year-old sister and mom were to cross the border by foot because they could only afford one airplane fee. My parents wanted to protect me from the endless hours across the desert, the bloody blisters, the dreadful dehydration, and the constant stories about disappearing children. So I traveled by myself with relatives I had never met. I started school in the United States, and like any child, I was ecstatic. But once 3rd grade began, I was moved from my ESL class and hit with the cruel reality that my accent was going to play a role in the way people saw me. Comments like, "Why do you talk like that?" and "You don't know how to spell right," affected my motivation for school. At 8 years old, self-doubt became standard. I was ashamed of my Mexican background. My Aztec name was no match for the American mouth, so the solution was to butcher it. Growing up, I told everyone that my name was Star because it was so much easier to pronounce. I would forget the new name though and search for Metzley on cups and keychains. At a young age, I felt invisible. My accent, looks, and customs didn't fit. There must have been something wrong with me. So I masked my Mexican culture with American customs. It was a compliment when people told me that I didn't look Mexican. I was either American or Mexican, and I had chosen American. I lost complete control over who I was until high school. For 8 years, teachers asked for a nickname so they wouldn't have to remember my complicated name. But in fashion industries, it was a whole different story. Everyone here is so passionate about their culture and their roots, The diverse group of students allowed me to comprehend that America wasn't only a certain race, culture, or language. Little by little, the mask started to come off. I didn't have to choose who I was. Mexico will always be my home. It's my heritage. But America has found a place in my heart. It's where I have grown up, made memories, met my best friends, and discovered my great love for art. America has challenged me and shaped me into a better person. This is a place where I owe my growth. I told myself I wasn't gonna cry. For obvious reasons, I get very emotional when I read this. America has challenged me and shaped me into a better person. This is the place where I owe my growth and where my dedication to better myself has flourished. I am one of the 800,000. Okay, I'm gonna need to take a break. Woo! Okay, give me a second. I know I cry every single time I read this, and yeah, I didn't bring tissue. Okay, we're back. I'm one of the 800,000 deferred action for childhood arrivals, DACA recipients in this country. It's amazing how much a piece of plastic can give someone so much peace. DACA has humbled me and liberated me from living in the shadows. I'm grateful for every opportunity. But on November 8, 2016, the America I had grown to love and call my own didn't welcome me. My life completely changed after this election. To some voters, my legal status was what defined me. For the first time, I saw myself as the rest of America seemed to see me: lazy, criminal, a failure. The light of my whole future drowned in darkness. While the situation of DACA is still in limbo, I owe it to myself and my family to reach my highest potential. The ongoing discussion about immigrants has awakened the voice inside me. I have become a college youth leader to provide undocumented students in my school college advice. As the National Honor Society Vice President, I lead monthly meetings to discuss raising awareness about immigrant challenges. Today, I am the proud daughter of immigrant parents, and I am the voice of the 11 million unknown shadows. Make no mistake, a loud one. Mic drop. Do you guys think that life is a funny thing? Because when I was writing this as a senior in high school, President Trump was speaking about how he was gonna like take DACA away and like all this and that, and now we're in 2020 and legit nothing has changed, and now we're waiting on the Supreme Court decision. Yep. So just a little note, for my college essay, I did get help from an editor, and she had reached out to my college guidance counselor asking if she would be interested in having a student be her pro bono case. And so that's how I got to work with her, and I will put her website down below just in case any of you guys want to reach out to her or just want to check her out. For those of you who saw my How I Got Into Barnard video, in there I explained how I was a college youth leader, and basically I help seniors apply to college. And even after now that I'm in college, I still do help high school students apply to college, and I help them out with their college essay and so on and so forth, right? So I've seen a couple essays, and of course I've written my own, so I've gathered a few things that I think are quite important and things to keep in mind when you are starting or editing your college essay. So when you're applying to colleges, obviously you have your stats, right? You have your SAT scores, your GPA, rank, all that nitty-gritty stuff, right? So what your college essay does is that it provides a better picture of who you are as a person, because not every school only wants to know about like, oh yes, Metzley had X GPA, she did X extracurriculars. There, you know, there's more to a person than their grades. When beginning to think about the topic or theme of your essay, I definitely think that it varies from person to person. For me, obviously, I chose to do my immigration identity and how that affected me as a person, because my identity as an immigrant student has affected my education and my personal life. It has legit affected everything and anything in my life, so it definitely wasn't a very important thing that I knew I wanted to include in my essay. But of course, it's a very vulnerable topic to talk about, and not everyone is comfortable talking about it in their essay, and that's totally fine. And that goes to my first point of not being scared to be vulnerable in your essays. But of course, keep in mind your own comfort level. I know for me, while I was very comfortable talking about my status and talking about my experience, I had to look at this essay for over weeks, or I think months, while I was editing and having multiple drafts. So it was definitely a lot to take in. So do keep in mind your own emotional boundaries and respect those. If you're writing about an event or situation that took place over a long period of time, it will be very helpful for you to set up your essay in kind of a timeline manner. So for example, with my essay, I started with when I first arrived in the United States and I ended in high school, right? So obviously that started in whatever year that was and ended in whatever year that was. If you guys go back and listen to my essay, you will notice that I include ages. So when I start talking about coming to the United States, I specifically state I was 3 years old. And then I start saying about, I forgot what I mentioned when I was 8 years old. And then I start mentioning high school. So what that does is it gives the reader a clear view of the timeline of events, right? Because one thing that I noticed for me when I was writing it is, to me, it was common sense. Like, of course, I knew I was 3 when I got to the United States. But like, the reader doesn't know that, and I promise you, at least for me, maybe it's just a me thing, who knows, because I know for me, when I was writing my essay, I found it very hard to include these like nitty-gritty details that helped whoever was reading my essay follow in a very like cohesive manner and don't get lost in a bunch of details that I'm throwing at them. This next point I think is a very critical one when you're either editing or beginning to write your essay. When writing, try to show and not tell. So what I mean by that is, obviously this is an essay, right? But don't make it sound like such a structured, typical school essay. Try to like spice it up a bit. The way I like to think about your personal statement is, it's a story, you know? And when you're telling someone a story, that's how you want it to sound when the reader is reading your essay, because you don't want them to get bored and you want them to remember your essay. So my suggestion is, try to include poetic language, metaphors, very descriptive words or sentences to help the reader visualize your story in their head. This is something that I saw a lot of the students that I have worked on in the past do, and is a very common mistake, is if you're centering your essay around an experience that happened to someone else but affected you, and talking about how it affected you or helped you grow and so on and so forth, try to not focus the essay around them. So if you're writing about your mom, include your mom, introduce your mom, talk about your mom, but do not make the essay centered around your mom, because at the end of the day, this is your essay and the selection committee is interested in knowing about you, not your mom. So for example, for me, when I was writing my essay, I often found myself railing off and talking about my family or talking about my sister. And that's okay to include 1 or 2 details, or like I said, if you're talking about your mom, your dad, your uncle, aunt, your best friend, try to bring it back to you. I can't remember from the top of my head the exact word count for the Common App. I think it was somewhere between 500 to 600 words, somewhere within that range. So I know for me, when I first started to draft up my essay, one of my main concerns was word count, because I was scared that I was not gonna have enough space to tell my story. And I remember working with my editor, and she told me, first draft, forget the word count. Like, put the word count and throw it out and do not worry about the word count whatsoever. And I'm like, what do you mean don't worry about the word count? And she said the reason why she wanted me to do that was she didn't want me to focus on the word count. She wanted me to focus on drafting my story, however long that was. It could have been 1,000 words. She didn't care. She just wanted to get every single detail down on paper and my whole story down on paper. That way it was easier to go back and cut, because if you have your whole story written out, it's much more easier to go back and edit things out than not know what you forgot to add in. So that means that your personal statement will have various drafts. I think for mine, I did 3 to 4 drafts with my editor back and forth, and that's why I usually recommend to start your college essay early on if you can. That way it gives you much more time to edit your essay, for other people to look at your essay and give you their thoughts on it. So that's all the tips that came to mind when I thought about writing your college essay. But if for whatever reason I didn't answer your question, or you have a specific question, feel free to comment it down below and I will try my best to answer back to you. Also, I always leave my social media accounts down below, my Instagram and Twitter. So if you feel much more comfortable DMing me or sending me a message on Twitter, feel free to do that. I check my DMs quite often, and especially if I see it's someone with a genuine like college related question, I always answer back, because trust me, I was in your shoes once and I know how annoying it is to DM someone and they don't respond back. So that is all for today's video. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you guys in my next video.